Richard Croft is obsessed with uncovering the truth about Queen Himiko, the first ruler of the Japanese Empire. His research reveals a darker side of the legend. Himiko was not just a queen, she was a powerful sorceress who ruled through dark magic, able to spread death and disaster with a single touch. Eventually, her own forces turned against her. Under the command of her general, they dragged her to an uninhabited island in the middle of the so-called Devil's Sea. There, deep beneath a mountain, she was entombed alive. Through an ancient map no one else has ever found, Richard discovers clues pointing directly to Himiko's hidden tomb. To him, this is not just history, it is a warning. The deathly power of Queen Himiko is still sealed away, waiting to be released. Richard knows that if the wrong people find it first, the consequences will be catastrophic, so he decides he has to reach the island before anyone else does. The story then cuts to a completely different world, a gritty boxing gym where a young woman is training in mixed martial arts. This is Lara Croft. In the ring, almost no one can keep up with her. She pushes herself hard, but in the end, she is forced to tap out and accept defeat. Before she can even leave the locker room, the gym owner corners her about her unpaid membership fees. Lara has been behind on payments for too long, and she is on the verge of being kicked out of the only place where she can properly train. Outside the ring, Lara's life is far from glamorous. She works as a food delivery rider, hustling through the city to make ends meet. After finishing one of her deliveries, she heads back to the bike courier base where her friends Scott and Raphael are planning a wild event they call the Fox Hunt. In this game, all the bike couriers chase one cyclist who has a tail attached to the back of their bike. The tail is linked to a paint can that slowly empties as the rider escapes. If the rider with the tail manages to stay ahead until the paint runs out, they win 600 pounds. Lara immediately volunteers to be the fox because she desperately needs that prize money. The race begins, and cyclists from all over London gather to hunt Lara down. Once the paint can is opened, she shoots off through the streets, with a swarm of riders chasing the tail on her bike. Lara weaves through traffic and tight corners with quick, confident movements, the city becoming her obstacle course while the competitors push hard behind her. In the middle of the chaos, something catches her eye, a man on the street who looks strikingly similar to her father. The sight jolts her memory of Richard Croft, who disappeared from her life years ago. Distracted by this sudden wave of emotion, Lara loses focus for a split second and crashes straight into a passing police car. The race ends in an instant, and instead of prize money, she ends up being taken to the police station. And this is where her real path begins. This is Tomb Raider. At the station, Lara is picked up by Anna, the woman who raised her and served as Richard Croft's most trusted assistant. Anna comes not only to free Lara from the situation, but also to persuade her to finally sign her father's death certificate. If Lara agrees, all of Richard's company's shares and assets can officially be transferred to her. Despite being the heir of a wealthy aristocratic family, Lara has chosen to live like an ordinary struggling young woman, rather than accept that her father is gone. Signing that paper would mean admitting he is truly dead, and she has refused to do that for years. That night, in her small, modest apartment, Lara finds herself thinking again about her father. Since she was a child, he was always disappearing on long trips for secretive work, never fully explaining where he went or what he was doing. The only thing she really held on to was a memory of the day he gave her a necklace that had belonged to her late mother. He told her that this necklace would protect her while he was away on his missions. The next morning, Lara walks into her father's company headquarters. Inside, she meets Anna and a notary who presents her with the inheritance documents. The notary asks her to sign, but just as she is about to, he pulls out an old Japanese puzzle box. It was part of Richard's final instructions, a gift meant for Lara if he ever passed away. She takes the box, curious and uneasy. After a moment of tinkering, the puzzle clicks open. Inside, she finds a childhood photo of her and her father, a small piece of paper, and a golden key. The note contains a single message, the first letter from my final destination. The words stop her in her tracks. Without saying anything, she leaves the room. Lara returns to the Croft estate and heads straight to the family crypt. There she finds her father's memorial stone. Suddenly, the clue makes sense. The final destination refers to this place. She pulls the first letter of his name from the stone, and it shifts loose, revealing a hidden keyhole. Lara inserts the golden key. The stones around her begin to move, slowly exposing a secret passage. She steps inside, discovering her father's hidden chamber. The room is filled with artifacts gathered from around the world. As she searches through his belongings, she finds multiple fake passports, each with a different identity. Her curiosity grows. What exactly had her father been doing all these years? In a drawer, she uncovers his old handycam. When she plays it, Richard appears on the screen with a somber expression. He explains that if Lara is watching this, it means he is gone. He warns her to burn every document connected to Queen Himiko's tomb, because if the information ever falls into the wrong hands, it could bring disaster to the entire world. Instead of destroying the files, Lara opens them. Page by page, she uncovers the truth her father worked so hard to hide. The tomb of Queen Himiko is located on an island called Yamatai. Among Richard's belongings, she finds a shipping receipt linked to a vessel named the Endurance, the same ship that carried him toward Yamatai through the Hong Kong waters. Determined to follow his trail, Lara visits a pawn shop the next day to sell the pendant her mother left her. After a tense negotiation, she is forced to accept only £8,000. With that money, she travels to Hong Kong, chasing the only lead she has. At the harbor, she begins asking around for the Endurance, but instead of getting answers, she is suddenly robbed. Lara fights her way through the crowded docks, dodging obstacles as she chases the thieves. Eventually, she catches one of them and forces him to return her bag. But the boy pulls out a knife, threatening her once again. In that moment, Lara spots a nearby ship bearing the name Endurance. She sprints toward it and climbs aboard, hoping someone is there who can help her. The deck is silent. No one answers her calls. A sudden gunshot echoes from above. It turns out to be the drunken owner of the ship, firing wildly from the deck. The thieves panic and scatter, leaving Lara behind. A moment later, the man collapses unconscious. Lara quickly splashes water on his face until he comes to. She shows him the shipping receipt that once belonged to her father. The man explains that the document is not his. It belonged to Choi Ren, his father. He introduces himself as Lu Ren and reveals that his own father vanished on the same voyage as Richard Croft. Realizing their paths are connected, Lara asks him to take her to the island mentioned in the records. Lu refuses at first, insisting that the Devil's Sea is far too dangerous. But once Lara shows him the money she has, he reluctantly agrees. They set off together. During the journey, Lara studies the puzzle her father left behind and goes through every detail of his research on Queen Himiko. While listening to Richard's recorded message, she learns that she is not the only one searching for the tomb. A secret group known as Trinity has been pursuing it for years. This ancient order seeks supernatural power to control the world, and Richard feared that Himiko's resting place might hold exactly the weapon they want. Days later, as they draw closer to Yamatai, Lara is lost in memories of her father when the ship suddenly jolts. A violent storm has swallowed the area. The waves rise higher and higher, and Lu fights to keep control of the vessel, but the sea is unforgiving. Lara grabs her father's research and prepares to evacuate, but before they can reach the lifeboat, the ship slams into a massive rock formation. The impact destroys the vessel, forcing Lara to leap into the raging water and swim for shore. When she finally crawls onto the beach, a group of strangers rushes in and knocks her unconscious. She wakes up to find a man standing over her. He introduces himself as Matthias Vogel. Lara immediately checks her bag, but her father's notebook is already in Matthias's hands. He explains that he is a mercenary working for Trinity, sent to locate Himiko's tomb. For 7 years, he has been stranded on the island, searching without success. He claims he has 2 daughters waiting for him, and Trinity has threatened that he cannot return home until he delivers the tomb. With chilling calmness, he admits he is the one who killed Richard Croft. Outside, Lara sees dozens of armed mercenaries and exhausted laborers forced to work under Matthias's command. Among them is Lu Ren, who has also been captured. Lara's hands are tied as Matthias prepares to move his entire crew. According to Richard's notes, the tomb is located on another side of the mountain. Eventually, Matthias and his group reach the site that matches the clues Richard left behind. As they prepare to set explosives, Lara notices an elderly, sick worker nearby. Without hesitation, Matthias walks over and shoots the man, showing no emotion at all before walking away. 7 years trapped on the island have turned him into something far more dangerous than a mercenary. At one critical moment, Lu manages to free Lara, giving her a chance to escape. She sprints into the dense forest with Matthias's men right behind her. The chase pushes her all the way to the edge of a cliff, with a violent river raging far below. As she attempts to cross, a gunshot rings out, and she falls from the ledge straight into the rushing water. The current drags her toward a massive waterfall. At the top, an old crashed plane clings to the cliffside. Lara reaches out and grabs the broken wing just in time. She hangs on, struggling to pull herself upward. Before she can steady herself, a strange creaking noise echoes through the metal. The wing begins to snap. In the final seconds, she rushes toward the fuselage and climbs inside. There she spots a sharp piece of broken metal and uses it to cut the rope binding her hands. But the plane starts shifting again, sliding closer to the abyss. It stops only because a cluster of rocks wedges beneath it. Even then, the floor under her feet starts to crack. Lara looks up and sees a parachute. Right as the surface gives way beneath her, she grabs it and jumps. The chute deploys, but she cannot control the descent. She crashes into the thick forest canopy, slamming through the branches until she finally hits the ground. Pain shoots through her body. A tree branch has pierced her abdomen. Gritting her teeth, she pulls it out and forces herself to move. After fighting through the brush, she eventually reaches the shoreline. The waves crash violently, and jagged rocks surround the island, making escape nearly impossible. That night, she wakes to the sound of someone approaching. One of Matthias's men charges at her. Lara fights back with everything she has and chokes him until he stops moving. In the distance, she spots another figure watching her. The person turns and runs toward the mountains. Instead of hesitating, Lara follows. She climbs a steep rocky cliff toward the entrance of a hidden cave. Inside, she confronts the mysterious figure, and in a moment of shock, realizes it is Richard Croft, her father. At first, Richard believes he is hallucinating. After so many years alone on Yamatai, seeing his daughter feels impossible. But Lara reminds him of habits only he would know, and the truth hits him. His daughter is real and standing right in front of him. Lara collapses in pain as the wound in her abdomen worsens. Richard rushes to help her. He stitches the gash as best he can, trying to stay calm while tending to his injured daughter. Overwhelmed by exhaustion and pain, Lara slowly fades out and loses consciousness. The next morning, Lara wakes to find her father shaving by the shoreline. He immediately asks whether she burned all of the Himiko documents like he instructed. Lara stays quiet, then explains everything she has done. Richard reacts with anger and fear. For 7 years, he faked his own death to mislead Matthias and keep the tomb's location hidden. He knew that if the tomb was ever opened, the curse inside could escape into the world. And now, because Lara followed the clues, Matthias has likely found the entrance. At that same moment, Matthias and his men reach the ancient gateway to Himiko's resting place. He calls his superiors for extraction, eager to finish his mission and return to his daughters. Determined to make things right, Lara decides she has to free the enslaved workers and get her father off the island. To do that, she needs to seize Matthias's satellite phone. Richard tries to stop her, warning that the camp is heavily guarded and the plan will only lead to her capture. But Lara refuses to back down. She grabs a bow and heads toward the camp on her own. She races through the forest until she reaches Matthias's base. Moving quietly, she slips between structures and hides behind a cabinet just as Matthias enters the barracks. From her hiding place, she sees an incoming message on his phone saying that transport is already on its way. Lara pushes deeper into the camp and finds Lu Ren. She silently takes down a guard with an arrow, and Lu picks up the guard's weapon, rallying the workers to escape. Gunfire erupts as Matthias's men try to stop the fleeing prisoners. Lara and Lu return fire, buying the workers precious time. Lu then leads them towards safety while Lara dashes into the barracks to grab the satellite phone. Outside, she freezes when she sees Richard captured. He had followed her, hoping to help, but Matthias now forces him to open the tomb's outer gate. If Richard refuses, Matthias threatens to kill him. Lara steps forward, desperate to protect her father, and agrees to help unlock the entrance. The door is covered in ancient kanji symbols. Lara remembers the Japanese puzzle her father once gave her. Using the same logic, she twists and aligns the stone mechanisms until the entire structure shifts. The massive stone gate collapses, revealing a dark cavern that tunnels deep into the mountain. Matthias orders Lara to go first, and the group descends into the tomb of Queen Himiko. Inside, Lara accidentally steps on a pressure plate. The floor springs open, launching hidden spears upward and killing one of Matthias's men instantly. It becomes clear that the tomb is filled with deadly traps. They move forward and soon reach a vast chasm. Below them lies a mountain of human bones. A narrow, ancient ladder stands as the only way across. As they press forward, Richard spots an inscription carved into the wall. It warns that the Queen of Death turns day into night and that she had to die in order to restore life. Before they have time to reflect on the message, the floor beneath them begins to crumble. Lara sprints toward a stone door ahead and notices a keyhole at its center. Richard quickly finds a red jade stone hidden inside a nearby statue and tosses it to her. She inserts it into the lock, but nothing happens. Matthias and his men scramble to search the other statues for matching stones. The platform Lara is standing on collapses, leaving her dangling and desperate for another solution. She thinks back to the inscription, remembering the word life. She combines the yellow and blue jade stones, creating green, the color associated with life. When she places the new combination into the lock, the massive door finally opens. They continue deeper until they reach what looks like an underground temple. On both sides of the chamber are rows upon rows of coffins. Inside each one lies a servant of Queen Himiko, people who took their own lives and were buried together so they could serve their queen in the afterlife. At the far end of the chamber, they discovered the stone coffin holding Queen Himiko herself. Richard tries to stop Matthias, but nothing can slow him down now. He orders his men to open the coffin. When they lift the heavy lid, Himiko's long-preserved body is revealed. It immediately begins to crumble from exposure to the air. Matthias prepares to remove the corpse, but Lara realizes something is wrong. The murals on the walls do not show a tyrant or a monster. They show a woman who chose to be brought to Yamatai. She came willingly, not in chains. Matthias's men try to lift the body anyway. As soon as they touch it, they recoil in horror. Their hands darken, as if burned by disease. A painful transformation begins to take over. Their bodies twitch. Their movements become violent and uncontrollable. Lara understands the truth. Himiko was not cursed. She carried a deadly infectious disease. She was immune, but anyone she touched was doomed. Her burial was not a punishment. It was a sacrifice meant to protect the world. Matthias quickly shoots the men who begin to turn, and in that moment he realizes what Trinity has been after all along. Not a mythical curse, but a weaponized virus. He cuts off one of Himiko's fingers and seals it in a plastic bag. Chaos erupts. Lara grabs an ice axe and goes after Matthias. They trade blows behind stone pillars before sprinting out of the chamber. One of Matthias's remaining soldiers chases her, but Lara hides inside one of the servant tombs. Meanwhile, Richard continues trying to stop Matthias, but behind him, one of the infected soldiers suddenly rises and lunges. Richard manages to escape, but at that moment he knows he has been infected. Matthias's men eventually track Lara down, cornering her between the stone walls of the tomb. She sprints forward and accidentally steps on another hidden pressure plate. A trap triggers, launching a row of deadly spikes from the floor. Lara manages to dodge them, but the attackers behind her are not so lucky. She rushes to find her father, but Richard pulls away and tells her to stay back. He already knows the truth. The infection has reached him. With no time left, he urges Lara to stop Matthias before he escapes with Himiko's deadly remains. Lara runs after him, gripping her ice axe. She catches up just as Matthias reaches the narrow crossing over the deep chasm. She leaps in front of him and forces him back with a kick. A brutal fight breaks out on the edge of the abyss. Lara manages to destroy the ladder bridge, cutting off his route to escape. Rage overtakes Matthias and he attacks with everything he has. Right when Matthias is about to kill her, a massive explosion thunders through the mountain. Richard has triggered the detonator. The blast interrupts Matthias, giving Lara the moment she needs. She grabs Himiko's severed finger from Matthias's pocket and forces it into his mouth. His lips immediately darken as the infection takes hold. Lara pushes him backward, and he plummets into the chasm. The explosion begins to tear the mountain apart. Rocks fall, tunnels collapse, and dust fills the air. Lara scrambles toward the exit, leaping across broken platforms and climbing the last remaining surfaces. She reaches the climbing machine, but the entrance above her starts to cave in. Outside, Lou sees the rope jerking under the rubble and rushes to pull away the falling stones. Beneath them, Lara emerges, alive and fighting to get out. Sometime later, a helicopter approaches the ruins. Lara and Lou overpower the crew and take control of the aircraft, finally escaping the island. Back in London, Lara signs the inheritance papers for her late father. The notary hands her the full list of Croft family assets. Lara instructs Anna to continue running the company, as she always has, knowing that office life is not the path she wants for herself. Anna leaves the room. While reviewing the list of companies, something catches Lara's attention. A name she recognizes. Patna. She remembers the crates carried by Matthias's men on Yamatai, all stamped with the same label. Patna is one of the companies owned by her father. She returns to the secret room in the Croft estate and pulls out Richard's Trinity files. There she sees the Patna logo again. She studies the map pinned to the wall. Trinity's influence spreads across the globe. And then she remembers something else. Anna has been running her father's businesses for years. Suspicion settles in. Lara begins to realize the war her father fought did not end on Yamatai. So the moral of the story is, if your dad leaves you a spooky puzzle box, maybe do not open it unless you are ready for unpaid gym bills, killer storms, zombie guards, ancient booby traps, and a guy who keeps fingers in plastic bags.